What's going on, everybody? Can you hear me? Is everything working all right? If it is, go ahead and let me know audio is okay and we can get started. Does the audio work? Anybody hear me? Sweet, sweet. Audio's working? All right. What's up, Brandy? What's up, Baba Kazi? What's up, Super Sleuth? Yosef? What up, Bob? Richard? What up, Verna C Flat? Happier than ever? Old Hillbilly? Richard Miller? What's going on, everybody? All right. I'm going to read from a book called The Omega Conspiracy. It's about UFOs and how basically they've been covering them up for thousands of years. So, about the time of the end, a body of men will be raised up who will turn their attention to prophecies and insist upon their literal interpretation in the midst of much clamor and opposition. Sir Isaac Newton. 20th century man is still at a loss to explain the amazing knowledge and expertise that characterized some of his ancient predecessors. Unlike primitive savages roaming wild and naked in the bush, they planned the pyramids, they built Babylon, the Tower of Babel, engineered Stonehenge, and constructed Mayan, whatever that word is. 1,000 years before Darwin formed his theory of evolution, the ancient Mayans and Toltecs carved their own versions of evolution in stone. Their calendar was more precise than ours today. They even knew about and used penicillin. And like the ancient Egyptians, they designed great cities and mammoth pyramids. But from where or whom did they get their information and expertise? Where did the ancient dragon get his information? And the ancient people of West African Republic, where did they receive their knowledge of Sirius's invisible satellites? Sirius, a star of the first magnitude in the constellation Canis Major, is 8.5 light years away. Yet they knew the satellite's position, gravitation, and orbit. The star's white satellite was not discovered until 1844. It was not seen by a telescope until 1862, but the tribe named Dogon, they knew about it before the telescope was invented. Hundreds of years, in fact. So, why did the Assyrians, who lived more than 2000 BC, encircle the planet Saturn with a ring of serpents? We all know the lore behind Saturn, or Satan. Saturn is an interesting place if you do the research. Occultists believe it is literally another dimension full of spirits. So let's continue reading. More than 2000 BC, they encircled the planet Saturn with a ring of serpents. How could they know Saturn has rings? They depicted no other planet this way. In addition to encircling Saturn with serpents, they also recorded different phases of the moon with accuracy not seen again until 17th century AD. But they did it in 1440 BC. That's right. 1500 years before Christ, they knew Saturn had rings. Fallen angels? I think so. Let's continue. How did the ancient Greeks know that there was 7 stars in the Pleiades? That they could see only 6 of them, but they knew there were 7. Who told them? Did a higher intelligence inform them? Seems legit. Where did the Sumerians of Mesopotamia gain their expertise? According to researchers Alan and Sally Landsberg, they pop up like some devilish jack-in-the-box around 3000 BC, so 5,000 years ago. Fully equipped with the first written language, sophisticated mathematics, physics, chemistry, and medicine. So what happened? People go from the Stone Age to fully equipped with mathematics, medicine, masonry, and all these different technologies. Where did they come from, right? We know they came from fallen angels. They didn't come from stars, the space. They didn't come from actual aliens. They came from fallen angels. And exactly what the Book of Enoch told us too. So the pre-Inca mountaineers of Peru performed amputations, bone transplants, cauterizations, brain surgeries, and even a variety of other operations. Where did they learn their advanced surgical skills? For whom did the builders of awesome structures of Tiahuanaco gain their knowledge 30 centuries ago? To erect such massive monoliths, the Landsberg asserts, would require a colossal power of cranes and some secret levitation unknown to us. Not only that, but those titanic blocks, some weighing 50 tons and more, were so precisely cut and interlocked that no mortar was needed to bind them. They just sat together by themselves. Even today, one cannot pound a chisel between them. All this was accomplished without power cranes, tools, hydraulic lifts, elephants, or oxen. How on earth could they have done it? The only plausible answer is with nothing on earth that we know of. Above the bay of Prisco, a giant pictograph in the rock, measuring about 820 feet in size, forms a mammoth trident pointing towards the heavens. The pictograph could not have been planned from the ground, for no engineer could have seen the workman who was on the rock face above to view it. In order to view it, you have to fly above it. And if it was made 2,000 years ago, men were supposedly had no means of flight. How did they do it? Visitors to the megaliths of Stonehenge have also been mystified by a dozen riddles. One observer, Andrew Thomas, asked how could men wearing skins have designed and erected this computer in stone? The greatest riddle of all. The greatest riddle of all. Where did the ancient Egyptians learn the secret of the pyramids' constructions? Sir Flanders Petrie called the Pyramid of Cheops the greatest and most accurate structure the world has ever seen. The Encyclopedia Britannica states that the brain power to which it testifies is as great of any modern man. I think actually ancient people were way smarter than us, like 100 times. We are so dumbed down nowadays. We have no critical thinking skills. We have no, it's kind of a joke what the human race has become. Our so-called intellectuals have kind of locked themselves into a corner and they no longer can even think anymore. So let's continue on here. The most accurate structures the world has ever seen. The Encyclopedia Britannica, okay, yeah, we just read that part. The brain power to which testifies is as great as that of any modern man, sorry. That is an understatement. No one today could have built the pyramids. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think any engineering firm in the world could do it, even though they claim they can. If they could, they would do it, right? The Great Pyramid is undoubtedly the greatest of the 7 wonders of the world. Practically everything about it is awesome. The length of each side is 365.2442 cubits, exactly the number of the days of the solar year, including the extra day every 4 years, leap year. The gradient of the pyramid is 10 to 9. For every 10 feet that ascends, one rises. One rises in altitude 9 feet. Multiply the altitude of the pyramid by 10, raised to the 9th power, and you have 91,840,000, which equals the number of miles from Earth to the Sun. Insane. Pyramids would also reach to the sun, and these are not the only amazing measurements found in the Great Pyramid. Cartographers have discovered that it stands exactly in the land center of the world, as it is known today. So the pyramid is the center of the world, geographically speaking. The Great Pyramid stands midway between the west coast of Mexico and the east coast of China. Between the North Cape of Norway and the Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, it stands in the intersection of the 30th parallel, both latitude and longitude. So incredible are some of these facts that the most skeptical of scientists have to admit it. The pyramid's locations and dimensions can never be a coincidence. Alan and Sally Landsberg have supplied us with more incredible statistics. Somehow, its builders knew that the world was round, but flattened at the poles. Or it's flat, right? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Which caused a degree of latitude to lengthen at the top and the bottom of the planet. And also that it rotated one day and tilted its axis 23.5 degrees to the ecliptic, causing the night and the day. That is this tilt that causes the seasons, and the Earth circled the sun once a year, every 365 days, and the designers knew it. They also must have known that the Earth's celestial north pole described a slow circle around the pole of an ecliptic, making the constellations in the sky appear to slip backwards. The precession of the equinoxes. And they also bring a new constellation of the zodiac behind them and the sun. Behind the sun and the equinoxes, approximately 6,200 years in a grand cycle, about 26,000 years. These facts were They were part of the internal measurements of the pyramid. So how did they know all these things about the precession of the equinoxes, how the moon is actually visible, and how everything is visible from different parts of the earth if they supposedly just kind of built it from there? Doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is it's fallen angel technology. Let's continue reading. One wonders, excuse me. One wonders whether the prophet Isaiah had this pyramid in mind when he said, quote, "In that day shall there be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border thereof to the Lord. And it shall be a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts." You know, I don't know if the Great Pyramid can be described as a building for the Lord. I honestly think it's black magic and it has nothing to do with the Lord. But, you know, some people say that that is what he's talking about, so let's continue on here. Further questions intrigue us. How are those gigantic constructions put together? How are those mammoth blocks of stones weighing 20 tons cut, polished, and made to fit? I couldn't tell you. They were made to fit perfectly into place. Even today, the seams between the blocks are hardly visible, and all this accompanied without cement. All more than 2 million blocks of stone, enough to build 6-foot wall from Los Angeles to New York. So they can build a wall from Los Angeles to New York with the stones that are in the pyramid, the Great Pyramid. Unbelievable. The height of the Great Pyramid is equal to that of a 42-story building, and the weight is 6.5 million tons. Yet the ground has never given way under it, nor has the pyramid itself moved over a period of thousands of years. That's insane. We have buildings in San Francisco that are collapsing because engineers don't know how to build things in modern times because the ground shifts and they don't account for that. So they build these giant skyscrapers that over like 10, 15 years start tilting, and now they're going to maybe collapse because they don't know what to do. People are clueless nowadays. But we are led to believe that we are living in the greatest age that has ever lived. Nah, sorry. People aren't smart. People used to be smart, but they're not anymore. All right, where are we at here? How does one account for this awesome display of knowledge by our prehistoric ancestors? Where does one find the key to such cosmic riddles? If my thesis is correct, the key may appear in the near future. Hollywood scenarios. It is clear that our generation, more than any in history, has focused our attention on the future. Hollywood always alerts man's dreams and nightmares, and it reflects the truth of our life in contemporary films. Its two most popular themes during the past 2 decades have been those of extraterrestrial origins and terrestrial disasters. Disasters has become a part and a preoccupation of Hollywood and the movies in general. So much so that a new world has found its way into our dictionary, disaster mania. Historian Christopher Lasch sums up by saying, storm warning, hints of a catastrophe haunt our times. I don't understand what that means. Hints is an understatement. Stories and movies of catastrophe and calamity have always been popular. Such motion pictures as Earthquake, The Towering Inferno, The Last Wave, Meteor, The Day the World Ended, and The Late Great Planet Earth have followed. This is an old book, by the way, if you haven't noticed by the movie titles. I think it was written in the early 90s. It's good to find books that are written a long time ago because history seems to vanish otherwise. You know, the internet obviously has a control over information. So if you can find things that were written before they had that mental control, you can find some gems. You can find some things that maybe they didn't want becoming mainstream. Like this, the Omega Conspiracy. According to Luke 21:9 through 11, the major signs would include of the end of the world. Wars. It is claimed that wars have characterized the human family throughout recorded history. There has never been a year without a war somewhere, but our generation has seen an increase in intensity, frequency, and scope of war never before imagined by the most bloodthirsty tyrants. And it's probably going to get a lot worse, huh? If you're following what's happening, which who isn't? War is on the horizon. You can hear the war drums beating, can't you? Dennis Healey, British Defence Minister in the Labour government, said on TV in 1967, "This has been the most violent century in our history. There has not been a single day since the end of World War II when hundreds of people have not been killed by military action. Our generation also has witnessed the introduction of completely new elements, weapons with the capacity of destroying all life on this planet. Since the 20th century has made a whole world unsafe to live in, there is no shaded grove or subterranean cave which man can hide safely." Unfortunately, there is something you can do and you can be safe, is with Jesus. You can't physically be safe, but the Lord will protect you. In Matthew 24:6, Jesus warns, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and ye shall not be troubled. See that ye shall not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Commenting on this passage, R.L. Heimers asserts it actually predicts war weapons capable of ending the world. The verse makes no sense unless it refers to wars that will make people afraid that the world will end by war. Yet no one has such fear until 1945 and the advent of atomic weapons. Jesus predicted such wars 2,000 years earlier. So they're saying here that Jesus predicted nuclear war. That's up to interpretation. Famines. Skeptics maintain that famines predicted by Jesus in Matthew 24:7 have been common occurrence throughout history. But again, there is a difference. They have never been on the scale with the frequency witnessed that we've seen in the last few generations. Yeah. Oh boy. This winter. I hope you guys are ready for this winter. Because 8 billion people, talk about famine. Oh boy. New York Times reports that every 8.6 seconds, someone dies of malnutrition. 10,000 every day, and over 3,500,000 every year. Aggravating the situation is a frightening increase in the world population. It has more than doubled in the last 50 years. Our planet, according to Leighton Ford, has become a global sardine can. Well, ain't that the truth? You can't go anywhere nowadays without crowds of people following you. I try and go out in the woods, I'll go to the mountains, and it's like groups of people there. Like everywhere you go, there's groups of people. But hey, that's all good. So, global sardine can. Stuart Rogers, amen, brother. All glory to Jesus. Stephen, come back, Jesus, amen. Tamara, thanks for coming out here and being the moderator. You're the best. Love you. Love you all, actually. You guys are the best. All right, I'm going to get back to reading. Aggravating the situation is a frightening increase in the world's population. It has more than doubled in the past 50 years. Our planet is a global sardine can. In many areas of third world, this situation has been further aggravated by the practices of Eastern religions. In India, for example, Hindus believe in reincarnation, that is, many people come back as cows, mice, or some other animal. Because of this, cows are sacred and never slaughtered. Every cow eats enough food to feed 7 people. And India has 200 million cows. The bottom line is these animals were slaughtered for food, India would have no food problems. They would be well fed, and the abundant surplus could be exported to other starving nations. But as long as such beliefs continue, famine will persist. I mean, that's an interesting way of putting it. I've never heard anybody lay it out like that before. But logic is logic, right? Earthquakes. The greatest single disaster known is an earthquake. Like war and famine, they have been around for a long time, but they also have increased in frequency and intensity, as Jesus predicted. Dr. Stanley Cronkite, in his historical survey of earthquakes, says, of the 13 greatest known earthquakes, 10 have occurred in the 20th century. It is not without reason that Jeffrey Goodman called us the earthquake generation. Well, that's scary, isn't it? The earthquake generation. The United States witnesses a large number of earthquakes each year. California alone averages more than a couple hundred, yet the states have never really had a truly terrible trembler. Yeah, I mean, San Francisco was in the 20s or something like that, and then Alaska had a big one, but we're overdue. And when these big earthquakes come, when Jesus talked about earthquakes, I think it's going to be massive earthquakes everywhere that are just going to basically just tear everything apart, because these little tiny shakers here and there, these are just precursors. It's going to be pretty crazy when it actually kicks off. I think it's going to be everything all at one time, because what we're seeing now is just tiny, tiny little glimpses of what's coming. Nothing major yet, which is pretty crazy. The earthquake generation. Here we go. The much publicized San Francisco earthquake, it was in 1906, killed 700 people. But the 1976 earthquake in China killed 655,000. Wait, what? That's insane. Can somebody fact check that? Earthquake in China, Tangistan, 1976, killed 655,000 people. That's insane. In addition, a few new grim elements have been added to the earthquake scenario of our day. Man-made quakes have become scientifically possible. Oh yeah, HARP. Man-made quakes, that's definitely a thing. There's actually rumored that, was it Obama? Somebody threatened Japan with an earthquake if they didn't go along with the NWO, and then I think it was the same guy that was just found, or that was just taken out recently. So pretty crazy stuff. The matter of China has, for some time, been the number one item on the Kremlin pre-war agenda. Oh, I think I skipped a paragraph. Let's go back. In addition to new and grim, okay, yeah, never mind. The first demonstration of a human-made earthquake was an undersea earthquake in Taiwan, scheduled for September 2nd, 1978. The second to take place was the following day, and it was to be an earthquake on land in the area of Western Europe. It is not generally known for earthquake activity. Both of these, Hua was told, would have intensities in the Richter scale of 6.5 and more. The third demonstration was given, it was going to be in Iran. The Iran quake would be brought about by remote means whose results are not yet highly predictable. I mean, they've been messing with Iran for a while, and now that Biden's over there, like, that's very sketchy. I don't know if you guys heard, but Biden apparently offered them money, trillions of dollars, to stop building nukes. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, we'll give you money, just stop building nukes. Yeah, okay. We're going to take that money and build nukes underground and pretend like you're not going to do it. I mean, come on. I can't even believe it, but all right. On Saturday, September 2nd, an undersea earthquake measuring 6.6 on the Richter scale occurred near Taiwan, right on schedule. The next morning, southern Germany was rocked by the most powerful earthquake in 35 years. It measured 6 on the Richter scale, and 11 days later, on September 14th, a fantastic earthquake reaching 7.7 on the Richter scale erupted for some 400 miles southeast of Tehran. In moments, the town there ceased to exist, and the devastation was heavy over a wide area. Within days, the death count had reached 26,000 and still climbing. 26,000 people. Insane. In a case concluded to be far-fetched and unproven, the authority, I can't even read this, Zybisky Brulinsky, something, assistant to the president for national security, refers to this very possibility in his book Between the Two Ages. Quote, not only have new weapons been developed, but some of the basic concepts of geography and strategy have been fundamentally altered. Space and weather control have replaced Suez and Gibraltar as key elements of strategy. I mean, I bet nowadays it's even crazier. Like the satellites and the space technology and weaponry and the things that we see. I have saved on my computer. It's a U.S. Navy patent for a UFO. I'll go over it one day. I think I'll make a video about it. But basically, what it is the U.S. Navy patented this technology, where they like have a triangle craft, and the front of it is basically hollow, and they're running electrical currents like crazy fast through the top layers of the metal, and it's supposed to make this like a rip in the space-time continuum and let the craft like move where it wants to. I read the patent and it's crazy, so I'll make a video on it someday. And I mean, that's probably the type of stuff they're talking about. These types of technologies are probably all linked. It's fallen angel technology that they have gotten somehow. I think we know how. All right, let's continue on with this. In a similar vein, Dr. Gordon M.F. McDonald of the University of California in Los Angeles, in an article in Geophysical Warfare, underscores the techniques of earthquake modifications and how they will be used in the future. Quote, in support of national ambitions, I can't read this guy's name, quotes him saying, accurately timed electronic strokes could lead to a pattern of oscillations that produce relatively huge power levels over certain regions of the Earth. Sounds like HARP. So they're just shooting electricity into the ground and making a pattern, causing the ground to oscillate, creating an earthquake, because everything's electricity. End quote on that one. Weather control and earthquakes manipulation will undoubtedly be some of the most grim and devastating weapons of war in the future. I guess if this is true, we're going to be seeing these things deployed probably relatively soon, based on current events, right? The Bible predicts that the greatest quake of all time is yet to happen. Even the Shensi catastrophe of 1556 and the Tangashan disaster of 1976 will pale in significance compared with it. This event is graphically foretold in Revelation 16:18 through 20. Quote, "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since man were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the city was divided into 3 parts, and the city of nations fell, and the great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found." So the earthquake destroys mountains, makes islands sink. What does that sound like to you? Well, it sounds like the day of the Lord, but it also sounds like Atlantis, aka the antediluvian age. It already happened once, but this time when it happens again, it culminates with the return of the Lord. He's going to be here with us. The accumulation of disasters in our day finds an interesting number of people echoing the words of President Reagan of the United States. Quote, "I turn back to your ancient prophets in the Old Testament and the signs foretelling Armageddon, and I find myself wondering if we're the generation that's going to see that come about." I don't know if you noticed any of the prophecies lately, but believe me, they certainly describe the times we're going through. Reagan said this, that's crazy. That's a long time ago, but he'd be freaking out if he saw what's happening now, because back in his day, it probably seemed bad, but nothing compared to right now. What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out tonight. Feeling a little bored and wanted to read with y'all and hang out with you guys, so thanks for coming by and hanging out, reading this book with me. All right, let's continue on. Okay, these disaster warnings of the end times predicted in the Bible has received full treatment from Hollywood's special effects technicians. All signs, that is, except one. There is a solitary sign that has eluded the film experts thus far. It may be the only instance where Hollywood has not yet caught up with the Bible. I think Hollywood is very far behind the Bible. They don't know what's going on. I think Hollywood, the writers, they watch stuff like this because they don't have any ideas, so they're like, all right, let's find some interesting stuff and we're going to make some movies about it. Because they run out of ideas. The millennials and the people that write movies nowadays, they have no life experience. All they do is just like sit around and watch TV, and then they write TV based on the TV they already watched. That's why it all sucks now. Nobody has any creativity anymore. Nobody has any original ideas, original thoughts. Everybody's just copying each other. A giant echo chamber. Sad. The Missing Sign, Chapter 2. All right. A century of progressivism bears the fruit of Hitler. Our own super technology breeds witches and warlocks from the loins of engineers. John Updike. Hints of this end time phenomenon have appeared in The Devil Within Her, The Omen, The Exorcist, and especially Rosemary's Baby. You know, I tried to watch Rosemary's Baby for the first time like a couple years ago, and I couldn't even make it through like the first half. I don't know. It was so disgusting. I was like, nah, this is not, it's too real, you know? I don't want to watch anything that's real. I had to turn it off. So, Rosemary's Baby. The Exorcist portrayed in harsh, garnished color the story of a young lady possessed by a demon. The crowds who flocked to see this film had no difficulty accepting its credibility. They were completely convinced by it. It portrayed a 12-year-old innocent girl who played with a Ouija board and ended up as a degenerate monster. A degenerate monster, it sounds like, well, I'll just keep my mouth shut. Mouthing vulgar obscenities and screeching obscenities. Her face developed into a mass of blood and welts and oozing pus. She engaged in vile, repulsive scenes and made violent sexual suggestions, even towards her mother. The story of this demoniac was so realistically portrayed that patrons were terrified in their seats. Some of them even became sick and vomited on the theater floor. Other after effects suffered by viewers included loss of sleep, loss of appetite, horrible nightmares, and night terrors. Johnny Carson even admitted on his Tonight Show that he did not sleep the night he saw the film. Paul Scott, the syndicated columnist, called this motion picture the most explosively dangerous film ever produced in the United States. He cited 80 documented cases where persons, after reading the book, themselves became possessed. So he's saying here that 80 people, there's documented 80 people that read the Exorcist book and became possessed afterwards. I mean, how can you read a book like that and not have the armor of God? I don't understand it. If you're going to be getting into stories like that, you need to be wearing the armor of God, and you need to be praying like every chapter, every paragraph, every sentence. Or how about just don't even read it? Like, why do you want to know about a demon-possessed story? It's not cool, you know? You want to know how to stop them and how to scare them, but the actual details of the thing that's not good. All right. Dr. James C. Bozuno Tudo, assistant psychiatrist at the University of Connecticut, warned that these films produce a cinematic neurosis, significant psychiatric impairment, and both the physician and the public should be aware. Mary Klobuchar sums it up for all when she says, quote, "Perhaps the most frightening thing about The Exorcist is the thirst for fascination with evil that lies buried within us all, surfacing the savage swiftness at the right incarnation." Some years before The Exorcist, the film Rosemary's Baby appeared. The theme of this movie came even closer to the ultimate sign of the coming end. It told of a baby being conceived by a demon, and the father by a demon father and a human mother. Wait a minute, is that really a demon father? So it's basically Mount Hermon in modern times, because Mount Hermon, the fallen angels, came down and had demon babies with human mothers, and what happened next was the Nephilim, which actually are the disembodied spirits. Those are the demons, is the Nephilim. So I guess whoever wrote this is probably some sort of high-level occultist, because how else would they know these details, right? It's a shame. It really is. So, yeah, a human mother. The hint was there, but how many of those who saw the film made the connection with one of the most repulsive signs of the end times? Science fiction, theological overtones. Another clue to the mystery lies in the world's fascination with UFOs. Early in the 19th, remember, this is an old book, so there was no official disclosure about the Tic Tacs and the Gimbals and the Go Fasts and the USS Nimitz and Catalina Island and all these things. They weren't even a thing yet. So in the early 1970s, Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind were record breakers at the box office. Oh, I'm not used to sitting like this for a long time, so let me stretch for a little bit. There we go. Spielberg's masterpieces, come on now, were superb in their scientific gadgetry, realistic effects. Ray Bradbury called The Close Encounters the greatest film of the last 20 years. Psst, it portrayed the arrival on planet Earth of an alien beings from outer space. These films and their sequels aroused expectations. They were science fiction with theological overtones. They were dressed with a sense of reality and no longer considered far-fetched. So when people watched these things originally, I wonder if they had some sort of knowledge that it was all a big psyop to try and condition people into what's coming, because it's been a while. I mean, these stories have been around for hundreds of years, but in the past 50, it's kind of ramped up dramatically. Probably because they were told, hey, something's going to happen, so you need to start preparing people for what's coming. It had all begun, of course, with science fiction. Edgar Allan Poe wrote about it. He was a weirdo. With all his creative and analytical genius, using the short story as his literary vehicle, Jules Verne elaborated with his fantastic stories of incredible journeys. Then H.G. Wells came on the scene with his War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds. Crazy. To many people, he was the guru of science fiction. Yet, across the Gulf of Space, mind you, across the Gulf of Space, minds that are to our minds as ours. Wait, what is this saying? To those of the beasts that will perish, intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. And early in the 20th century came the greatest disillusionment. Okay, so that was a quote from War of the Worlds. This was the book that formed the basis for Orson Welles' radio hoax in 1938, when panic-stricken multitudes rushed out of their homes, convinced the planet had been invaded. Now, imagine something like that happened now. It would be pretty easy for them to do, right? They would just have to put on some light displays and then go on every single TV news network and say, hey, there's something in the sky, don't go outside, lock your doors, stay inside, you're safe inside. They're going to lock us down and say, if you go outside, the UFOs are going to get you, right? It makes sense. I don't think so. H.P. Lovecraft was another one. Actually, speaking of H.P. Lovecraft, Derek Gilbert believes that H.P. Lovecraft was channeling some ancient entities that gave him his information, because H.P. Lovecraft was touching on a lot of things that he probably shouldn't have known about during his time. In fact, the whole Chariots of the Gods Von Daniken movement was founded from H.P. Lovecraft's work, when the U.S. soldiers brought little pamphlets of short stories over with them to Europe fighting World War II. So, H.P. Lovecraft can technically be traced back as the originator of the ancient alien theory, thus starting all of this stuff, right? So, I don't know. He seems to have been a vessel from some sort of evil entities that were preparing the way for their coming. So H.P. Lovecraft was another in a string of science fiction writers. Some of his ideas were based on biblical statements of the conflict between good and evil. He wrote that the earth had been inhabited long ago by gross creatures of vastly superior intellects, which were presently sleeping but soon to awake and regain the planet. The old ones, right? Cthulhu. These are probably fallen angel entities. These are probably evil entities that are mentioned in the Book of Enoch. That's just my opinion, and other people's too. The overlords. Arthur C. Clarke was another giant in the field. His masterpiece, Childhood End, in 1953, he deals with the last generation of man upon the earth. It is a generation which sees its offspring transformed into something totally non-human and yet superior to humanity. This book became a catalyst for many more such works, developing and elaborating on similar themes. According to Woodrow Nicholas and Brooke Alexander, quote, "It's probably not too much to say that Clarke's novel became a cornerstone for the developing world view of a whole generation." It's crazy how one person can just write some crap and it influences so many people. Nobody knows anything better than anybody else. Everybody knows nothing. So somebody just, let me just come up with something. They just write a bunch of stuff down. Yeah, I'm the best. Check this out. And, oh, you're so cool. How did you come up with that? They just made it up. They just thought, oh, what can I make up that people will think is cool? It's just ridiculous. Nobody knows anything. The only people that know anything, well, there's only one person. His name is Jesus. Other than that, nobody knows anything. Everybody's equally dumb. I'm sorry. It is interesting to note that Clarke added a cryptic announcement in italics on the copyright page of every edition of his book. The opinions expressed in this book are not those of the author. Among other things, he mentions UFOs, spaceships arriving on the planet Earth and crewed by the overlords. These overlords are far superior in man and intellect and proceed to establish a dictatorship upon the Earth. The Antichrist, right? It was orderly and benevolent, but in time the overlords began to reveal their true character. And lo, they look like devils. Actually, however, they were supposed to be high-minded guardians of humanity. Go figure. High-minded guardians of humanity, ruling on behalf of the mysterious overmind. They were here to guide mankind through enormous and inconceivable evolutionary transformations. The new race they produced was the children of the last humans. And at least they look like children, but their faces are devoid of personality, for they are not individuals. They are cells in the body of divinity, neurons in a single mind. Sounds a little bit like the NPC theory, right? They're not individuals. They're like a hive mind. I don't know. Seems a little suspicious. Religion even played a role in Clarke's fantasy. He had an uncanny gift of bringing all the strands together. Science, mysticism, religion, parapsychology, and ufology. Is it ufology? UFOlogy? I don't know. The leader of the overlords brings into focus this significant mindset. Believe me, it gives us no pleasure to destroy man's faith. But all the world's religions cannot be right, and they know it. Sooner or later, man has to learn the truth, which is Jesus, by the way. Your mystics, although they were lost in their own delusions, had seen part of the truth. Their powers of mind are limited, and the powers behind them, which your science could never have brought within its framework without shattering it entirely. All down the ages, there have been countless reports of strange phenomena. Poltergeist, telepathy, precognition. Speaking of phenomena and poltergeist, there's a lot of strange phenomena surrounding Skinwalker Ranch that isn't just limited to Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, there's probably a portal there, but there's portals everywhere. There's portals all over the place. There's probably thousands of them. It's just that one gets the attention for whatever reason. In my opinion, Skinwalker Ranch, they're going to find a crashed UFO under the ground, and they're going to say, hey, look, live on TV or something, this is what we found. It's from a different planet. And people are going to be like, and we're going to be like, no, it's not from a different planet. It's from a different dimension. All right. Science fiction to science fact. In our day, the real thing has unquestionably arrived. Absolutely. Our generation has taken the leap, a giant one at that, from science fiction to science fact. An age which has witnessed man stepping to the moon and starting his own Star Trek to distant galaxies. Yeah, right? Trump made Space Force. I mean, it's like, is it a joke? It looks like a Star Trek symbol. Space Force. I know there's probably something to it, but it's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. No subject has greater fascination for modern man than UFOlogy. Ufology. And the subject has spawned more theories as to the origin and identity of space vehicles, commonly called UFOs. They appear to be invading our world, strange phenomenon, as recorded in Genesis 6, which could prove to be the missing clue in solving the UFO mystery. Absolutely. UFOs are literally fallen angels. They can appear to do different things, and they can trick us, and they can fool. They live in a different wavelength of light, so they can show us different things. Just because we see a ball of light in the sky doesn't mean it is what we think it is. When man began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of men and had children to them. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. So some people will say the sons of God in that they're humans. No. Look up the Hebrew, look up the original, how it was written, because everything in the Bible, if you didn't know, we have the original translations. Every single word in the Bible was translated from a different word, right? From a different language. But we have those original translations. So you want to know what the Bible said originally? Look up the original translations, the Strong's Concordance, eSword. There's so many different tools. But sons of God is Benai Elohim. Elohim means a spirit being. There's never a case in the Old Testament where Elohim means person. So basically a spirit being, or an interdimensional being, an alien, as the world would call them. They saw that the women were beautiful, and they came down and created a hybrid race. Genesis 6, 1, 2, and 4. Controversy surrounds the interpretation of this passage. Nevertheless, strong biblical evidence indicates that it refers to the bizarre union between extraterrestrials and the woman of Earth. The Nephilim were the superhuman offspring of that union, and they appeared on this planet just before the Great Flood. In fact, their existence and vile corruption of the world was the main reason for the catastrophe. Their kind was destroyed along with the rest of mankind in the flood. Only Noah and his family escaped the contamination and hence were saved. Yet centuries later, the Nephilim emerged again, this time on a more limited scale in the land of Canaan. Numbers 13:2, 25, and 33. As before, God ordered their destruction. The threat of the Nephilim. This immediately brings to mind a number of intriguing questions. Why is the presence of the Nephilim so great a threat to man that God would resort to such drastic measures? Who were the parents of these superhumans, and where did they go? Nowhere. They went to Skinwalker. The reappearance of the progeny would indicate that they returned again and contaminated the human race with their offspring. That would be the second incursion of the Nephilim. If the procreators of the Nephilim are to reinfest our world successfully, they must prepare mankind for the assault. They face a more sophisticated human race. What greater ploy than to convince us that they are brothers of a man traveling from different worlds to invite us into this great intergalactic society? Sounds so sweet, right? Oh, just, we're all brothers. What a great... what a greater way to awaken our imagination to the possibility of a supernatural union between the aliens and the daughters of men. Rosemary's Baby and the devil within her are but one facet of the deception. Hollywood may soon take the connection between the subtle sign of the end times and the apparent arrival of beings from another dimension. It's 1:07 and you guys are still here. Praise the Lord. Smash that like button for me if you don't mind. It is significant that after a long struggle for recognition, millions of people now believe that UFOs exist. And what is more likely, that they have been on our planet the whole time. Absolutely. These space vehicles have been tracked on radar, fired on by jet fighter planes, photographed hundreds of times, probably hundreds of thousands of times now, and have left indisputable evidence of their landing on the ground. In all, 15 million Americans, including the former President of the United States, claim to have seen them. I saw one. I don't know if you've seen my video, but I talk about it. I basically read Dr. Stephen Greer's book, How to Summon UFOs. I did it. It showed up. It was pretty dumb. Don't do it. These space vehicles have been... Okay, so I read that part. The evidence is such that Marcia Stigliano could write the New West magazine that there is an accumulation of material weighty enough to bury the toughest skeptic. Yeah, of course. I mean, there's nobody skeptic nowadays. This was written a while ago. If you don't believe UFOs are real nowadays, you're just burying your head in the sand. Whether they're real as in physical or real as in a deception, real as in interdimensional, doesn't matter. There's something there. There's always something that's been there. The Bible talks about it. The Bible is thousands of years old. The Book of Enoch talks about it. That's 4,000 years old? The Old Testament's older than that. Talks about it. So the oldest texts that mankind has talks about UFOs. Maybe not in the way that we're used to hearing them. You know, Will Smith, Independence Day, you know. That's a little bit different, but it's all the same thing, just twisted so our generation can really understand what's going on. Chapter 3. Looky. Close Encounters. If the government has been covering up Watergate, then their handling of UFOs is a cosmic Watergate. J. Allen Hynek. You know what, Mr. Hynek? I think you're a little bit naive with that statement, because it's a lot deeper than that, my friend. While multitudes are convinced that they are being visited by cosmic travelers, millions of others view UFOs as nothing more than a hoax. To them, the evidence offered by people around the world is too incredible to believe. Even on the official level, doubt prevails. Not anymore. Despite the skepticism, UFO controversy has proven one thing. Neither the state nor science can explain the phenomenon. Unwilling to admit their failure, many have resorted to simple expediency of denying that UFOs exist. I mean, you can deny anything, doesn't mean it's true. You know, you can sit in a cave and say, cars don't exist. I've never seen a car. I live in a cave. Okay, good for you. Many of the scientists on White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico would no doubt disclaim any belief in ufology, But words found there, scribbled by an unknown hand on a restroom wall, may well be nearer to the truth. I saw a disc in the air, a silver disc that wasn't there. 2 more weren't there again today. Oh, I'd wish they'd go away. Wait, is that real? Somebody scribbled that in the bathroom in white sands. I saw a disc in the air, a silver disc that wasn't there. 2 more weren't there again today. Oh, I'd wish they'd go away. Hey, that's pretty cool. Pretty funny. The science comedy, right? Finding themselves unable to deny the phenomena completely, other scientists have resorted to various rational or semi-rational arguments. I think they're all semi-rational or like not even rational, right? Because what is rational and what is semi-rational? That's really, your choice, right? Because one person's rationality is not rational to somebody else. So, I don't know. Finding themselves unable to deny the phenomena completely, other scientists have resorted to rational or semi-rational arguments. Some assert that UFO witnesses are mistaken. Others explain them as optical illusions. Swamp gas. I think we're beyond swamp gas at this point. Oh yeah, good old swamp gas, right? It is hot in here. Many opt for a simpler solution. UFOs are nothing more than secret military spacecraft. Maybe, I was talking about that patent that I found earlier that the Navy has that, has a UFO technology in it. Maybe some of them are, but the thing is, we know they're not all from the government. If the government does have that technology, okay, but they're not all from them. There's probably a mixture. Flying saucers are able to read the markings. No one would undoubtedly see "Made in USA" on them, or "Made in the USSR." Oh, I guess it dates the book a little bit. Made in the USSR. This too would completely explain the official government's silence on the subject. It is nothing more than Washington's cosmic cover-up, according to one author. The Nut House. What's up, dude? You want to see a video on that patent? Yeah, I'll probably do it. It's complicated, It's like a few pages of like really technical like stuff, and I don't know. It's kind of boring, but at the same time, it's not, because what they're talking about is insane, but it's very, very technical. So it's like, I'll see if I can like put something together that kind of works it out a little bit. But you guys doing pretty good tonight? They discovered second covering were 2 different. Okay, I'm not even gonna try and read comments. Sorry, people. It's the screen isn't even near where I'm at, so I'm not gonna read comments. But you guys are the best. I'll read comments later. I just can't do it right now. It's either like this or comments. So maybe next time I'll do a video like just reading comments and talking to you guys. But all right, here we go. Major Murphy, a former high level in the United States intelligence. What is the United States intelligence? Huh? Anyway, Major Murphy suggests that the UFOs are not spacecraft at all, but rather psychotronic devices. Psychotronic devices. So some sort of mind-powered mental thing. Seems legit. He holds that during World War II, the Germans were doing advanced research on controlled electrical discharges. Oh yeah, absolutely, and controlled lightning. And tried to combine the two. He also claims that scientists were working on a circular aircraft that were hoping to develop a new and secret weapon. In an interview with Jacques Vallée, Major Murphy said, quote, "When we invaded Germany, a lot of hardware fell into our hands, but the Russians had gotten most of the good stuff. It was soon after this that people started seeing UFOs in 1940. No. First of all, the Babylon working ritual probably was what started the modern UFO kick. And second, there's been UFO sightings for hundreds and thousands of years. So it's just because you don't read your history book, you don't, find UFO sightings in history, doesn't mean they don't exist. The people that wrote the history books just wrote about major events. They're not knocking on every door. Hey, excuse me, have you ever seen a light in the sky? There's been reports of UFO sightings, for forever, thousands of years, but the extent of them is never going to be known because normal people would never have a voice in the history books. So until our time, that is. Now everybody can talk about stuff, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. The circular aircraft. There we go. Are UFOs real? Yes, they are. I'm going to skip this one because we know they're real. So all right, here we go. Other UFO sightings have been reported from Russia, and the Soviet Deputy Premier Kozlov is one of the men who is convinced of their existence. According to Brad Siegler and Joan Whitethrow in their book Flying Saucers Are Hostile, in the spring of 1959, UFOs brought panic to a Soviet radar and Air Force personnel hovering and circling more than 24 hours above some city. Headquarters of a tactical missile command, the Red fighter pilot sent aloft to chase the UFOs away, reported that the alien objects easily outmaneuvered the jets. Yeah, of course they outmaneuvered the jets. But I guess they didn't know back then, huh? There have been so many sightings in the Soviet Union that they too have launched an official UFO study project under the leadership of Major General Pravorsky. When the two Russian cosmonauts, Yuri and Gregory, returned to the Earth in March 1978, after 96 days in orbit aboard their Slilet 6 orbiting spacecraft, they told of a formation of UFOs that trailed them closely for 3 complete orbits around the globe. One of the astronauts' cameras filmed a 20-minute motion pictures of the encounter. Probably just looked like little balls of light following them. I mean, a second camera took still shots, securing some outstanding pictures. This news, of course, was suppressed in the Soviet Union, but they did, according to previous mutual agreements, forward copies to the United States to be analyzed by NASA. Unofficial statements from NASA state that this is one of the best motion picture footage ever filmed of UFOs. Yeah, but we've never seen it, right? Come on. And of course, the still photographs have been enlarged to 4 feet square, revealing many features of UFO. 4 feet square? Okay. So back then, they're taking it with actual film. There's no pixels, it's a film. You can blow it up. So theoretically, you would get cleaner images on a film camera than you would digitally, unless it was, done perfectly, which, we all know that doesn't happen for whatever reason. So it would be interesting if those ever got leaked, 4-foot pictures blown up, or maybe just the original negatives, so we can do our own research. Doubtful that's ever going to happen. All right. Revealing many features of UFO. A report leaking out of Russia states the whole episode marks irrefutable proof of UFOs and their existence, and their extremely high maneuverability in space. Dates and data. UFO sightings cover a vast period of time. For thousands of years, there have been reports of strange sightings, and records of such sightings have been found in a number of ancient manuscripts. One of the earliest, undoubtedly, was found in Egypt, dated to around 1500 BC. That's not as old as Enoch. Come on. It referred to the great circle of fire coming in the sky. The fire in the sky, ancient Egypt version. Travis Walton, and is followed by other similar circles. These vehicles had no head, no tail, but they did have a mouth. But a mouth with no voice. A good description of a spherical spacecraft. Maybe. I would say probably. but not a spacecraft. Definitely some sort of being, some entity. The modern furor concerning spacecraft seemed to have begun in 1947. No. Babylon working ritual. Look up the Babylon working ritual. That's what happened. Okay? It was in that year Kenneth Arnold was flying his private plane from Chelis to Yakima, Washington, when he sighted 9 gleaming discs near the Cascade Mountains. 9 were strung, one behind the other, traveling at fantastic speeds. Their estimated size was about 100 feet in diameter. 9 discs, 100 feet in diameter. That's insane. Crazy. After traveling... Oh, I read that. They were saucer-like in shape. The name caught on, and soon flying saucers became a household term in America. Arnold's name found its way into our history books. Soon, reports of other sightings began coming from different parts of the country, confirming his experience. Or they read the news and were like, oh, I want to be on the news too. So I saw something. Such sightings, however, have been recorded much earlier than 1947, as far back as the 1800s. There were records of UFOs appearing over San Francisco, Chicago, and more than 150 sightings were reported during the time. The records refer to space vehicles as bizarre lighter-than-air ships, sporting propellers, portholes, windows, antennae, and brilliant searchlights that they can direct at the ground. That seems consistent. Searchlights? Fire in the sky? On May 15th, 1897, right? So obviously there's no planes back then. There's nothing in the sky. In 1897, you got some kites, balloons? No? Maybe? I don't know. But there's nothing flying around. There's certainly no searchlights in the sky in 1897. A strange entry was made into the log of HMS Vulture when cruising in the Persian Gulf. Commander Pringle, he recorded that 2 incredible objects glowing brightly were pacing his ship, one on each side, and he described them as revolving wheels with illuminating spokes. Revolving wheels with illuminated spokes sounds a little bit like Ezekiel's wheel within a wheel, right? So this dude in 1879 was on a boat, and he saw these 2 objects glowing. And one second. Wow. Okay. She wanted to come say hi, be part of the group. That's okay. Long before them, American Indian mythology had described space vehicles in its own characteristic fashion. The Sioux Indians referred to sky people returning to their home by turning themselves into arrows and ascending in that form. So the sky people transformed themselves into arrows and shot back up into the sky. Crazy. Some men have used this description as proof of extraterrestrial visitors being able to adapt themselves to the cultural milieu of the time. And that does make sense if you think about it. If these things are fallen entities, if they are demonic in nature, it's completely obvious that the name of Jesus will make them run away. They're scared. You bring up Jesus, if you're spirit-filled, these things cower because Jesus scares these things. Like, it's insane. So they would have to try and trick people, right? That way people don't automatically say, oh, look, it's a demon, and then call out the name of Jesus and make them run away. So if they make themselves seem like something else, like an arrow, you're not going to call out the name of Jesus to an arrow, right? I mean, I would, but with somebody else, I don't know. But that's pretty interesting to think about, that they can transform themselves into different things. You know, there's reports of, you know, gray aliens turning themselves into owls or something like that, or different animals that seem to be a little bit different, right? So somebody will see an animal, but the animal is like looking at them strangely and kind of hypnotizing them, and that's when you know it's not an animal, right? Animals don't hypnotize you; they're just furry most of the time, with teeth. For thousands of years, there have been reports of sightings of strange vehicles in the sky, and these records have been preserved in ancient manuscripts. One author, Ed Valero, on a tape message, says every generation in history, except one, has recorded reference of a UFO. The one exception being the generation which Christ walked on earth. How beautiful is that? Every generation ever to live has had UFOs except one, and that's when Jesus was here. I bet when Jesus was on the earth, those things were like far away. They're way too scared to come out and show themselves. They're like hiding under rocks and like under the ocean and in their little deep underground bases. Oh, Jesus is here, everybody hide. Wait till he's gone, we can come back out. Good luck. The proliferation of investigative organizations, both official and private, would also indicate a basis of fact to UFO reports, whereas the governments of many countries have set up organizations to study these findings and sightings. Far more numerous are the private organizations established for the same purpose. Yeah, like Bigelow Aerospace and what's his face, Jared Fogle at Skinwalker. These are billionaires that are just like throwing money at paranormal things. Big mistake. Typical of these organizations would be the Ground Saucer Watch in Phoenix, Arizona, and Project Starlight International of Austin, Texas. These things probably don't exist anymore because it's an old book. 100 such organizations exist in America alone, or existed. The only one I know about now is, well, there's a few, but MUFON's the big one. MUFON probably bought them all out and did a hostile takeover. Such is the interest in the subject that new science has come into being, called exobiology. Its function is to search the universe for extraterrestrial life. The leading spokesman is the noted Carl Sagan of Cornell University. So I guess this is back when Sagan was alive. His books, The Cosmic Connection and Dragons of Eden, have become bestsellers. Carl Sagan is convinced that civilizations exist in the reaches of space. He produced a remarkable LP record of Earth sounds that was fastened to the spaceship Voyager for its first trip into space. Far beyond our solar system in the record, Sagan included greetings in 60 languages, including sounds from volcanoes, avalanches, the ocean, and animals. There's even sounds of whales saying hi there. Come on, Carl. That's cheesy, man. That's cheesy. More dates and data. The existence of photographs and certain physical records are further proof that UFOs exist. Rex Heflin took photographs of UFOs in Orange County, California in 1965. When he was a highway traffic investigator for the county road department, he saw this vehicle skim over telephone poles, cross the road in front of him, and continue its flight on a low level. The sighting lasted about 15 seconds actually, during which he took the time to take out his Polaroid and took 4 photographs. These photographs were later published by the Santa Ana Register and released to other papers by the United Press International. Maybe you guys can find those pictures, right? 1965. Some cool Santa Ana Register. Some UFO pictures. I don't know. That seems pretty interesting. Probably doesn't exist anymore, though. It would be interesting, to find all these old things that were like reported on that don't exist anymore, especially all the old giant bones and stuff. We know the Smithsonian has them. How many hundreds of reports? Giant bones found. Dr. So-and-so from the Smithsonian came. Took them away to Washington. Time and time and time and time again. Come on. Come on. You think we don't we know what's going on. We know. All right. Former director of the Photographic Interpretation Center of the CIA had issued a statement that he had examined a number of UFO films on behalf of the U.S. government and found them to be authentic. Oh yeah, Mr. CIA. Astronaut John McDivitt took movies of a UFO as he orbited the Earth in 1965 at the speed of 17,000 miles per hour. Open space vehicles like disc in shape circled the craft. Disc-like in shape circled the craft as he and astronaut White were on their 20th revolution. He has no doubt whatsoever as to the craft he saw in film. So what's up with all these astronauts taking pictures and video of UFOs? I mean, you don't really hear about these stories nowadays, so these old books have some gems in it. I want to see these pictures. Show me the pictures. In addition to this, photographs exist of physical marks left on the ground by space vehicles. What space vehicles? You talking about UFOs? Those aren't space vehicles. Sometimes these marks scorch the earth, sometimes tripod impressions. Physicist James McCampbell, addressing a UFO synopsum in 1975, said evidence left at landing sites leaves little room that UFOs are heavy, ponderous objects when addressed. Yet in flight, their startling departures, sudden stops and right-angle turns, high speed require them to be virtually massless. No, they're just messing around with our, with gravity, basically. That's all it is. With such evidence on one is entitled to ask, how much more is needed before everyone believes in the reality of this phenomenon? Well, I think everybody does believe in it nowadays, so give it 20, 30 years since this book was written, it becomes mainstream. One can understand men like Edward J. Repillett, head of Project Blue Book, being perplexed by the unwillingness of men to accept the evidence. He asks, quote, what constitutes proof? Does a UFO have to land at the river entrance to the Pentagon? Near the Joint Chiefs of Staff office? Or is it proof? I mean, that's naive. Come on, they know. They know, dude. Or is it proof? This is funny because it actually happened now. Is it proof when ground radar station detects a UFO, sends a jet to intercept it, and the jet pilot sees it and locks on with radar? This is written in a long time ago, and that's what's happening now is, they're being locked onto. So, it was bound to happen. It's probably been happening a lot more. And to think that the Nimitz thing was the first time that the Navy or the military had locked onto one, I think is ridiculous. They probably have done it hundreds of times, thousands of times, maybe. And they're just letting people know now, pretending like, oh yeah, it wasn't even a big deal. We did it and we were confused. Give me a break. How dumb do you think we are, right? I guess they do think we're pretty dumb, so cancel that question. Is it proof when a jet pilot fires at a UFO and sticks to his story even under the threat of court-martial? Well, he's got a little thing there that tells me that story, so I need to go back and read some of these actual stories on the citations because that's pretty interesting. Confronted with the massive evidence that UFOs really exist, the question is inevitably, how do you explain it all? Well, it's all in the Bible, actually. Close Encounters. The science of UFOlogy, or UFOlogy, specifies 3 distinct categories of sightings. 1, close encounters of the first kind. This refers to a mere sighting of an unidentified flying object at close quarters. Number 2, close encounters of the second kind. This includes not only sighting of a UFO at close quarters, but also the presence of certain physical records of the craft being there. So some smashed grass, some little indentations here and there, some burned things, some radiation maybe. That's number 2. That's going to be second. These records may be tangible marks. Okay, I just said that. Number 3, close encounters of the third kind. This is the most bizarre and incredible of the 3 encounters. I think there's more now. It goes up to like 9, I think. It's like 9 being fully demon possessed by an alien. These are the most bizarre, incredible of the 3 encounters, for it includes, in addition to the 2 distinctive above, a direct confrontation with space beings or an entity, sometimes called humanoid. These sightings are so incredible that scientists of the caliber of Dr. Hynek would often gladly omit them altogether if they could do so, without offense to scientific intelligence. There is a tendency on the part of all intelligent beings not to accept evidence of such mind-boggling nature. It means that one has to go out on a limb if he wants to subscribe to a belief in that animated living creatures have been seen descending from strange space vehicles, gesturing to humans, and even trying to engage them in conversation. People have become so accustomed to viewing such encounters as jokes that now it's almost impossible to treat them as facts. After all, who would want to go on record saying that they actually seen a giant humanoid? Well, people have now, man. People have now. The Kandahar giant, that's one, right? And then wasn't there 2 in Afghanistan? There was the Kandahar giant and then a different one, I think. One of the most recent reports of these encounters comes from the little town of Sturino near Naples, Italy, on August 29th, 1977. No fewer than 7 men from Sturino saw a spaceship parked on the ground, also a giant space-suited humanoid trying to communicate with them. What? I never even heard this one before. So in Italy in 1977, 7 guys saw a spaceship land on the ground and a giant in a spacesuit try and communicate with them? How has this never been? Come on, that's pretty crazy. The men were so awestruck and spellbound as this creature gestured to them. One of the 7 witnesses was put into a trance and questioned by medical hypnotists. According to the report, Professor Franco Granome of the University of Turin, they are not telling lies, the subject, under hypnosis, have referred to the fact that they actually lived through this situation. That's insane. So these dudes were probably drunk, right? No, I don't know. It doesn't say that. But, I mean, that's crazy. A giant comes out with a spacesuit. If that happened to me, I'd be rebuking that thing in the name of Jesus. I'd be rebuking nonstop until it left because it would be scared. I'll tell you that much. I'll scare it. The space giant was first spotted by 2 college students. Okay, so I guess it goes more into the story here. Michele Giovanni and Rocco Ciriolo. Just after midnight. Here is a part of the newspaper report from February 22nd, 1978. According to Giovanni, quote, "We are out walking suddenly in the crossroads of a mule truck leading to an abandoned quarry." So they are walking at midnight to an abandoned quarry? Come on. What were they up to, right? We were attracted by a glowing red light behind the trees on a hill. We approached it cautiously and heard strange noises like those in a science fiction film. Blip, blip. Words cannot describe how I felt. Then we saw the outline of a tall figure. It stepped forward and was lit by the moon's rays. It was like an athlete in a luminous suit which clung to the body, and it had on a silver helmet. We were 35 feet away and petrified by what we saw. Then the figure turned to face us, and from the level of its eyes came flashing lights, red and orange. So this thing is flashing lights from its eyeballs? Man, that's crazy. We turned back to the village, scared stiff. Giovanni and Crulio excitedly told their story to 3 men they found in the village square. medical student Antonio Pasucci, school teacher Emilio Carbucci, and machinist Arturo D'Ambrosio. Our first reaction was to laugh, recalled Petrucci, 24 years of age, who attends the Naples University. However, out of curiosity, they went to the same D'Ambrosio in D'Ambrosio's car. The creature, quote, the creature was dressed in a silver suit with a belt. There were two eyes. Excuse me. With a belt. So the creature was dressed in a silver suit with a belt. Where two eyes should be were two orange lights which blinked. What? It had arms and legs, but could not be seen if it had normal feet or hands. In the distance, down the slope, we could see the outline of an object with portholes and white lights inside, and there was a dome on top with another light. That's crazy. Pascucci came to the conclusion that the figure defied the laws of gravity as it moved up and down the slope. Its body was always to the at right angles to the ground, whereas humans must lean on steep slopes from falling. So I guess it just like walked like straight up the hill without touching the ground, kind of just like straight up or something. Pretty crazy. Pascucci tried to walk the same way as the figure, but fell over each time. He continued with his eyes blinking. It blinked out messages in Morse code. What? I couldn't understand what the messages were saying, but the rhythm was a regular pattern, as if it was trying to communicate. I would not look at that flashing light. Oh no. No way, that thing will flash you right into some possession. Then it tried to, with a high-pitched sound like a radio, hold on, wait, what does it say? Then it tried with a high-pitched sound like a radio, again in Morse form, before changing to a low pitch like an airplane engine. That is just bizarre. So this giant being wearing a weird suit with flashing orange eyes, making strange sounds like machinery, starts like flashing at them. That's strange. Okay, that's very weird. The five drove back to Sorrento, where they came across singer Maurizio Sisto and his friend Mutrino. I'm butchering all these names, by the way. Also, for a late night stroll, Sisto and Rufio returned to the quarry site where the men and the giant figure was still there. What? So at this point, there's like two people saw it, they left. They went and got random people like, check out, there's something crazy you gotta see. They all went there, it's still there. Then they left again and got some other people, and then it's still there. That's crazy. He said that the humanoid, which had a black box attached to its waist, made a beckoning gesture with its right arm, like an invitation to follow. I bet if they did that nowadays, I bet people would be lining up, oh yeah, take me aboard to the spaceship. Insane. Then it stopped, pointed up to the sky, and seemed to indicate that he came from up there. To find out whether it was a trick, the men threatened it, saying they had a gun in it, but they would shoot it if it didn't speak up. But the humanoid made no response. It's Italy. Come on. People don't have guns in Italy. They knew he was lying. Although scared at him, the fascination of it all kept the men from running away. Petrucci said that he liked to communicate. He tried to communicate with the creature using sign language, but had no success. The figure came no closer than 50 feet from them. The men watched the humanoid until about 3:30 a.m. Oh, what a coincidence. 3:30 a.m. You got 33 there, and 3:30, that's supposedly when the veil between the spiritual realm and our realm is the thinnest. I guess it's from 3 to 4 a.m. But, there's really no scientific proof, or there's no, actual anything that says any detail about that. It's kind of just some new age thing that people made up, right? And if there's some truth behind it, I'd like to read about it, but I've never found anything legit. Although scared at the time, okay, here we go. Nope. So 3:30 a.m., they saw the creature. Then Petrucci said, Suddenly, a ray of intense white light shot out from its forehead, lighting up the whole area. This is just getting more bizarre. I mean, I don't even know what to make of this story. It's crazy. This time, the men were panic-stricken, fearing that the light was a laser beam, and it would shrivel them. The 7 fled back to Sorrento. The next morning, the villagers flocked up to the site. By this time, the mysterious creature had disappeared. The unidentified craft had also vanished, but in the hard, rocky ground where it had been sighted, 3 circular imprints were arranged in a triangle and were highly visible. These strange imprints were examined by construction engineer Carmine Cangrio, but he was unable to offer any explanation for them. The 2 sides of the triangle measured about 13 feet, and the base measured about 14 feet. He told the newspaper the diameter of the circle was about 8 inches, 3 holes inside the circles. Also in the form of a triangle, were 1 V inches deep. By his calculations, he said, it would take an immense force to create the imprint. The only thing I know of which could possibly have made them is a pile driver. But it would be impossible to get one up the mule track. All 7 men were questioned carefully by the police, a doctor, and the mayor of Sterno, and all were convinced they were telling the truth. Sterno, Italy, 1977 seems a long way off geographically and chronologically from the events of Genesis 6. But the answer we are seeking is whether there is a linkage between the two. Does the giant seen by the men in Sterno and other encounters of the 3rd kind have any revelation to the Nephilim giants in the pre-deluge times of the antediluvian era? Probably. Physical or psychic? Angel beings shuttle in a flash from the capital glory of heaven to earth and back again. Billy Graham. I don't know about Billy Graham. If you like Billy Graham, I've never really looked into him. I've heard people say he was a Freemason and kind of show me some evidence. I don't know if Billy Graham was a Freemason or not, but some people really like the guy, but I've never really looked into him. Chapter 4. All the data gathered under the category of UFOlogy. None seems more absurd than the close encounters of the 3rd kind. To imagine living entities of humanoids riding around in space vehicles and engaging in conversations with humans of Earth is too bizarre to merit serious consideration. Nevertheless, the evidence is there. The fact is, says Dr. Hynek, that the occupants' encounter cannot be disregarded. They are too numerous. He elaborates, despite the bizarre nature of the reports and the seemingly impossibility of them having happened, the fundamental question is, as before, not could these reports have happened, but did they happen, more or less as reported. I would not be engaged in delineating these matters in this book had not the evidence I personally have examined over the past years seemingly overwhelmingly to indicate yes to answer to the latter question. The bizarre events actually did occur, as unthinkable as many seem to the physical scientists. As for the documentation, Dr. Hynek states, it will undoubtedly surprise most readers to learn that there exists a catalog of some 1,100 cases in which UFO occupants have been reported. These 1,100 cases are additional, of course, to the scores of thousands of other belonging to categories of close encounters of the 1st and 2nd kind. Not one space vehicle has ever crashed to Earth. Not one single tangible piece of evidence, nut, bolt, chunk of saucer, extraterrestrial debris, trash can has ever been found. Not true. I don't know if you believe Bob Lazar or not. I kind of do, but at the same time, I don't. I don't know. Maybe he's lying. He seems like he's not lying, but sometimes people that are liars seem like they're not lying because that's what they do. And it seemed rather coincidental that he had like some major migraine when he was being interviewed about it. So I don't know. Bob Lazar, true, not true? What do you think? You guys put it in the comments. I actually want to know what most people think about Bob Lazar. I think he's probably a scam artist, but I give him like 25% chance that he's telling the truth. So 75 no, 25 yes. I leave it open. These two facts are seriously denied by a number of experts in the field. They state that a number of space vehicles have been recovered and that many of them are now stored in secret air bases in Nevada. Not one has ever responded to radio or any other kind of signal. No planet has ever been positively identified as a home base of UFOs because they're from another dimension. They're not from a planet. And it's interesting because they used to tell people, the aliens would say, hey, we're from Venus. And then people would get their telescopes, check out Venus. There's nobody there. Oh, we're from Mars. There's nobody there. We're from this. There's nobody there. Now they're saying, hey, we're from Zeta Reticuli. Well, what a coincidence that we can't see that far to say, oh, there's nobody there, because they're not from there. They're just pretending to be from there to scare people. All right. I'm going to take a 1 second, maybe 1 minute break. I'll be right back. This is not comfortable, this chair I'm sitting in. So, all right. Oh. Some refer to them as humanoids, others as UFO nauts, UFO sapiens, or paraphysical beings, and spiritual beings. Scientists of late have shown a preference for this last designation and are referring to more and more of these visitors as spiritual entities, and indeed to the whole UFO phenomenon. This was the term used in the Condon Report. This document, published by the Air Force-sponsored scientific group at the University of Colorado, under the direction of Dr. E.U. Condon in January 1969. This report has been much criticized and even ridiculed by certain UFOologists as another example of government whitewashing. But, in fairness to the report, it should be noted that it did arrive at three significant conclusions. A. It all but demolished the idea that Earth was being visited by creatures from another planet and galaxies, admitting that few mysteries still remain unsolved, and concluding that there was no hard evidence that UFOs were from extraterrestrial civilizations. These objects seen in the sky, sometimes on the ground, were just as material as other physical objects, although only maybe temporarily. The sightings of UFO spaceships and aircraft and their occupants should be attributed to paraphysical phenomenon. That is, UFOs belong to the same this is the major one. So this report from the government, right? This is what the third thing says. This is the most important. I'm going to read it again. The sightings of UFOs, spaceships, and aircraft and their occasional occupants should be attributed to paraphysical phenomenon. That is, UFOs belong to the same categories as seances, spirit movements, and etc. In short, they are paraphysical. So they're ghosts, right? They're in the same category as ghosts and demons and poltergeists. That's why all the weird things at Skinwalker Ranch are happening, right? I don't know if you're following what's happening at Skinwalker, but Skinwalker has some of the most obvious ghost, poltergeist activity. Skinwalkers, it has literal portals opening with UFOs coming in and out. It just shows that all of these things are connected. These are all the same things pretending to be other things. So why would it make sense otherwise? It wouldn't. The paraphysical concept. As far as we know, this was the first time that the paraphysical concept had been advanced by a group of scientists. Although individuals like Meade Lane had introduced the concept in the early 1950s, General Stanford of the U.S. intelligence, of U.S. intelligence, of U.S. intelligence. There's no U.S. intelligence. There's like thousands. There's lots of U.S. intelligence agencies. He made a similar suggestion in 1952, comparing UFO sightings with spiritualism. In 1959, he noted psychologist Carl Gustav Jung propounded the thesis that UFOs were not to be interpreted in physical terminology, but rather spiritual and religious terminology. They should be understood not as interplanetary vehicles, but visionary vehicles. Interesting. Since 1959, there has been more accumulating mountain of evidence that would place UFO activity within a spiritual and religious framework. Many of the contactees, when asked to describe what happened to them, referred to occult mysticism, psychic manifestations, and telepathic communications. So profound have been the religious and cultic references that a number of religious and semi-religious groups have crystallized around these alleged UFOs. Yeah, what was that one? The guy, he was the cult leader, and he said the UFO's coming, and they're gonna take all the people with them, and they need to kill themselves, and then put 25 cents in their pockets. People are crazy. Man, crazy. Heaven's Gate, was that it? Heaven's Gate? I don't know. Where was I? Okay. Sightings and communications of the UFOs. Some of these groups by such names as the Atheist Society, the Urenta Group, the Solar Cross Foundation, the School of Thoughts, plus hundreds of other small secretive groups. So they're just talking about some cults, I guess. In spite of all that, there's been the skeptical attitude of the U.S. government. Not anymore. It did publish an amazing statement, preface to the official document, UFOs and Related Subjects, an annotated bibliography, and it was composed by Miss Lynn E. Cateau in these measured terms. A large part of available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism and the metaphysical. It deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, invisible entities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist manifestations and possession. Many of the UFO reports are now being published in the popular press, recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon, which has long been known to theologians and parapsychologists. This document was compiled for the United States Air Force and is now in the Library of Congress. What exactly does one mean by the term, quote, paraphysical, and is it to be distinguished from the term spiritual? The term paraphysical means that UFO vehicles and their occupants have the power to assume physical properties of solid or not solid, thus becoming visible to man. At the same time, they have the power to become invisible again and to take on spiritual or ethereal properties. Dr. Clifford Wilson explains. Dr. Clifford Wilson explains, many of the reports indicate that at least some of the UFOs were transparent, yet at the same time appearing to have mechanical or physical properties. So they're transparent and not at the same time. Going in between dimensions at will. Exactly what we see happening. Whenever there's a UFO like actually filmed, you can usually see it blinking in and out. If you can actually find a real video. Most of them are fake, but they do exist. But most of them, when you see them, you can see them blink in and out of existence, leave the frame one point and reappear in another place. Many of the reports of witnesses indicate that at least some UFOs were transparent, yet at the same time appearing to have mechanical or physical properties. There are strange stories of saucer occupants walking through the sides of their vehicles as they themselves were ghosts. And the same thing, the occupants, right, the beings inside of these UFOs have been reported to walk through walls, to hover people through walls. Our physical reality is a little bit different to them. They can seemingly walk through walls and walk through solid objects. Is it technology or is it just their spiritual existence that allows them to do that? I think it's probably the latter, because technology like that, it probably does. I don't know if it exists or not, but I think if it did exist, the government or somebody would be using it and we'd see it more often than just, some crazy stories like this. There are strange stories of saucer occupants walking through the sides of their vehicles as they themselves were ghosts. Much of the evidence suggests that the possibility of the vehicles themselves and even the occupants of those vehicles are not permanent. They are not permanent solids in the sense that we would think of vehicles and beings on this earth. This is not to suggest that many of those vehicles are not solid at the time they were seen. For at the time they are sighted, many of them are just as solid as houses and motor cars and other objects on earth and all around us. They can leave impressions on their tripod stands on earth. They can also be changed so that their molecular structure materializes or dematerializes in a way that we limited humans cannot do or perceive. In his book, UFOs, Operation Trojan Horse, John Keel writes, quote, "The statistical data which I have extracted indicate that flying saucers are not stable machines requiring fuel, maintenance, or logistical support. They are, in all probability, transmogrifications of energy and do not exist in the same way that this book exists and are not permanent constructions of matter." And again, all of these events seem to prove the larger part of the UFO phenomenon is hidden from us and has taken place beyond the limited range of our eyes. Yeah, our eyes can only see a very small wavelength of light. I think it's 10%. I don't know. There's so much light that we can't even perceive. So there could be some stuff standing right next to us right now, some spiritual things. Hopefully they're from the Lord, some angels and whatnot. But I can tell you right now that there's nothing negative around me, because that armor of God will keep anything away. The Holy Spirit frightens these things. And if you ever get harassed by any, unseen entities, you feel like something's watching you, just pray. Call out to Jesus. They will run. I've never tried it, and I've heard stories of it working, but I would like to try it one day, and if it ever happens to me, I'll let you guys know what happens. Let's continue on. All of these events prove that a large part of the UFO phenomenon is hidden from us and has taken place beyond the limited range of our eyes. We can only see the entities and the object under certain circumstances, and perhaps only certain types of people can see them. Thus, that actually is pretty interesting, because there are reports of, 2 or 3 people standing together. 1 or 2 people can see the UFO, and the third one can't, or vice versa. So maybe there is something to that, where your physiology can determine whether you're susceptible to actually looking at UFOs or not. Oh, 1 second here. We gotta get this background going again, huh? There we go. My background turned off. How long have we been doing this? It's 2 a.m.? You guys are crazy. You guys are watching this at 2 a.m. with me? Man, that's pretty cool. Alright, in this book, UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, John Keel writes... Okay, we just read that part. Sorry about that. It's 2 a.m. All of these events seem to prove that a large part of the UFO phenomenon is hidden from us and takes place... Oh, I read that too. Let me just drink some water and refresh myself here. This book is really interesting, guys. The Omega Conspiracy. I think this author was one of the first to link UFOs with the Bible. And, we're about 30% into the book, but he does a really good job later on at linking everything together. Traveling in 4 dimensions. This opens up a whole lot of possibilities. If these spirit beings could travel in all 4 dimensions, it would explain a number of things about angelic appearances and disappearances. But supposing that there are more than 4 dimensions, which some people say there's 9, Chuck Missler says the Bible states there's 9 dimensions, if I'm not mistaken. But 4 is where we're at right now, I guess. Supposing there are 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, or even 7 dimensions, they could travel in all of them. It would not be impossible for the angelic beings. Perhaps a more homely illustration is one suggested by Alan Landsberg in his book In Search of Ancient Mysteries. He discusses the possibility of shortcutting through space-time in a multi-dimensional universe. Talking about Einstein-Rosen bridge there? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that they're coming through an Einstein-Rosen bridge. I think there's more dimensions that occupy this Earth, and sometimes they come onto each other like that, and it makes a hole in the dimensions, basically, and that's when the entities can come in and out. Places like Skinwalker Ranch, because it doesn't happen all the time. It's like random, it seems. And maybe it's not random. Maybe there is a pattern to it, but people just haven't really uncovered what that pattern is. I hit a button here. Okay. The sons of God, the daughters of men. The cravings of demons for a body, evident in the Gospels, offers at least some parallel to this hunger for sexual experience. Derek Kinder. In 1947, an Arab boy tending his sheep accidentally discovered an ancient cave near the Dead Sea. In it were found priceless collections of ancient scrolls which were soon to be known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, or the Qumran texts. Among these writings was one known as the Genesis Apocryphon. So the Book of Enoch, you got the Book of Giants, and a lot of other ancient Hebrew books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And a lot of, actually, almost complete pieces of the Old Testament as well. So that's one of the oldest books ever found. Praise the Lord. According to the Bible, the son of Lamech, the son of Methuselah, and the father of Noah, was the 9th and the 10th patriarchs of the antediluvian world, before the flood of Noah. What's notable too is every single culture around the world has a flood myth. They all have the same myth of beings coming from outer space, inhabiting humankind, and then God being upset with that, destroying the world and resetting everything. It is significant, however, that Genesis Apocryphon mentions the Nephilim and makes reference to the sons of God. And it is also the daughters of men introduced in Genesis 6. The Apocryphon also elaborates considerably on statements found in the Bible and provides valuable insights into the way the ancient stories were interpreted by ancient Jews. A copy of the Genesis Apocryphon discovered at Qumran dates back to the 2nd century BC, but it was obviously based on much older sources. When discovered in 1947, it had been much mutilated from the ravages of time and humidity. The sheets had become so badly stuck together that years passed before the text was deciphered and made known to humanity. When scholars finally made public its contents, the documents confirmed that celestial beings from the skies had landed on the planet Earth and bred with humankind. More than that, it told how these beings mated with earth women and begat the giants. In this story myth, or history, fable, or fact, specialized research has revealed that many ancient legends have a basis in fact. I think a lot of ancient legends are fact, not basis in fact. They are fact. That's just my opinion. But to answer the question, let us consult the most authoritative source known to man, the Bible. In Genesis 6:1-4, the sons of God are captivated by the beauty of the daughters of men. They subsequently marry them and produce the offsprings of giants known as the Nephilim. Genesis goes on to say that these Nephilim were mighty men, the men of renown. The sons of God, the daughters of men. What sort of beings were these? Were they human, or did they belong to alien species from outer space? Identifying the sons of God. Here's the thing, if you think about it. The Bible says that when God made the earth, all the angels shouted for joy and were singing in glory and happiness. So that means, by very definition, the angels are extraterrestrial. They watched the earth formed. They watched it be made. How are they not extraterrestrial? They were alive and conscious while the earth was being created. So extraterrestrials and angels are technically exactly the same thing by definition. We're not talking about from a different planet here. We're just talking about not made on earth. Angels were made before earth. First, a group within Orthodox Judaism theorized that the sons of God meant nobles. No. Psh, we can skip all that. So there's 3 categories. In the New Testament, born-again believers in Christ are called children of God or the sons of God. So that's the distinction. The New Testament and the Old Testament are totally different books written thousands of years apart and in different languages. Luke chapter 3, verse 38, John 1:12, Romans 8:14, and 1 John 3:1. Dr. Billinger in the Companion Bible states, "It is only the divine specific creation that any created being can be called a son of God." This explains why every born-again believer is a son of God, because we have the Spirit of God in us. We have Jesus who lives in us, so we are sons of God by default. Not before. Unsaved people are not sons of God. This explains why every born-again believer is a son of God, and it explains also why Adam was a son of God. Adam was specifically created by God in the likeness of God, made by him. Genesis 5:1. Adam's descendants, however, were different. They were not made in God's likeness, but in Adam's. Adam begat a son of his own likeness, after his own image. Adam was a son of God, but Adam's descendants were sons of men. So Adam was created by God. He was a son of God. But Adam created his own descendants, so they were sons of men. So if God creates something, they are sons of God. Louis Sperry Schaeffer expresses this in an interesting way when he states, in the Old Testament terminology, angels are called sons of God, while men are called servants of God. In the New Testament, this is reversed. Angels are the servants of God, and Christians are the sons of God. It's pretty crazy that it says that we will judge angels someday. That we are a little bit above the angels. That's pretty amazing. So, if a fallen angel tries to tell you, hey, get on my UFO, you can say, no, man, I'm above you. Get behind me, Satan. He's got to listen to you because you have authority. So, how cool is that, right? We have authority over stupid little aliens flying their stupid UFOs. It is thus clear that the term sons of God in the Bible is limited to three categories of being: angels, Adam, and believers of Jesus Christ. All three are special and specific creations of God. As for use of the term in Genesis 6, since it cannot possibly refer to Adam nor believers in Christ, we conclude that it refers to angels whom God had created. Light from the New Testament. Two New Testament passages shed further light on Genesis 6. They are Jude 6 and 7 and 2 Peter 2 through 4. You guys like my library behind me? It's pretty cool, huh? Totally legit. These verses indicate that at some point in time, a number of angels fell from their pristine state and proceeded to commit a sexual sin that was both unusual and repugnant. Jude 6 through 7 states, quote, "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day." The great day of the Lord when he judges the angels. Oh, I can't wait. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities about them, in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh. So basically comparing the destruction of angels to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. These angels not only failed to keep their original dominion and authority, but also left their own habitation. So that the Bible says that the angels left where they're from and went somewhere else. And they were condemned for it. Condemned to death. Habitation is a significant word, and it means dwelling place or heaven. What is going on here? What is going on here? Alright. Sorry about that, y'all. As you know, I don't really live stream that much, so it could be smoother, but it's fun. Alright, so where were we here? Habitation is a significant word, and it means dwelling place or heaven. So angels left heaven to come here and have sexual intercourse with human women. The Bible says it. I know it's weird, but hey, I don't make this stuff up. And the addition of the Greek word "edi," their own, means they had left their own private, personal, unique possession. So the angels had something created for them, and they chose to leave it to come to earth, to our dimension. Heaven was the private personal residence of the angels, and it was not made for man, but built for the angels. This is why the ultimate destination of the saints will not be heaven, but it will be the new and perfect earth, which God will create. Heaven is reserved for angels, but as for the beings referred to in Jude 6 and 7, they abandoned it. Why? For lust? Come on. Stupid. I think it was more they wanted to create their own race and create something, because angels don't create. They're just creations. And they're jealous that man could create. So I think it really comes down to creating. Not only did these angels leave heaven, but they left it once and for all. The Greek verb apoleipio is, I don't even know what that says, thus indicating all for one act by taking the action they did. These angels made the final irrevocable decision. They crossed the Rubicon. Their action says was an apostasy with a vengeance. As to the specific sins of the angels, we are giving facts in Jude 7. As the case of Sodom and Gomorrah, it was the sin of fornication and going after strange flesh. Strange flesh means flesh of a different kind. To commit this particular repugnant sin, the angels had to abandon their own domain, invade a realm that was divinely forbidden to them, and go after strange flesh. Quote, these angels transgressed the limit of their own nature to invade the realm of created beings of a different nature. End quote. Alfred confirms it was departure from the appointed course of nature, and seeking after that which is unnatural to other flesh, that appointed by God for the fulfillment of natural desire. The mingling of these two orders of being was contrary to what God had intended. And summarily led to God's greatest act of judgment ever enacted on the human race. And that was the flood of Noah. Another New Testament verse that may have bearing on Genesis 6 is 1 Corinthians 11:10. Paul instructs that a woman should cover her head as a sign of subjection to her husband, and also because of the angels. So Paul is saying women should cover their head while worshiping because of the angels, because the angels might get lustful feelings by seeing a woman's hair. That's what he's saying. Because of the angels. This observation has intrigued commentators across the years. Why this sudden reference to the angels? Could it be a reference to what happened in Genesis 6, where the angels succumbed to the inducements and physical charm of women on earth? Obviously, Paul believed that an uncovered woman was a temptation to the angels. It's pretty interesting to think about, right? I mean, think about what society is now. If Paul was saying, hey, cover your hair because your hair might tempt an angel, look around now. I mean, it's crazy. You can't walk outside without seeing people half naked. I mean, the angels are probably having a heyday today. Scumbags. William Barclay mentions an old rabbinic tradition which alleges that it was the beauty of women's long hair that attracted and tempted the angels. Strange patronage. The offspring of the union between the sons of God and the daughters of man were so extraordinary that it indicates an unusual parentage. In no way could the progenitors of such beings be ordinary humans. Their mothers could possibly be human, or their fathers, but certainly not both. Either the father or the mother had to be superhuman, only in a way that one can account for extraordinary character and prowess of the offspring. God's law of reproduction, according to the biblical account of creation, is everything after its kind. God's law makes it impossible for these giants to be produced under normal percentages. To produce such monstrosities as the Nephilim presupposes supernatural. So, giants, right? The giants were supernatural beings. They are not human in any way. And that's why the Smithsonian covered up their bones. Imagine what would happen, right, if you're in history class, college, high school, whatever, And the teacher's like, okay, today we're going to learn about the giants in Genesis 6. I mean, they can't have that, because then everybody's going to be a believer. And then nobody's going to hell. They need souls to burn, right? They really just need that sacrifice. It's all about the sacrifice. So giants, Nephilim, is a Hebrew word translated in the Authorized King James Version as giants. There were giants on the earth in those days. It is true that there were giants in more senses than one. However, the word Nephilim does not mean giants. It comes from the root nephal, meaning fallen ones. And most modern versions of the Bible have left the word Nephilim untranslated. When the Greek Septuagint was made, Nephilim was translated as gigantes. This word suggests giants, but actually has little reference to size or strength. Gigantes means earthborn, and the same term used by the mythical Titans, being partially celestial and partly terrestrial of origin. The Hebrew and the Greek word does not exclude the presence of great physical strength, however. Indeed, combined supernatural and natural percentage would imply such a characteristics. Angels, according to Scripture, are known for their power and are often referred to as sons of God or sons of mighty. Therefore, if the ones who sired them were strong and mighty, it could be assumed that their offspring were likewise. When the word Nephilim is used in Numbers 13:33, the question of size and strength is explicit. We are left no doubt as to their superhuman prowess. When Joshua's spies report back from Canaan, they called certain inhabitants of Canaan giants. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, which came of the Nephilim. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, so in their sight. So they were the size of grasshoppers to these giants. That's pretty crazy. Some commentators have speculated that the Nephilim of Numbers 13 belong to a second eruption of the fallen angels, since either the Nephilim have been destroyed in the flood, and they see an allusion to Genesis 6:4, where it states that there were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. It's 2:30. I'm getting tired, guys. I think we can finish this another time. What do you think? Oh! I think I can maybe, I don't know, I don't want to promise tomorrow night, but I'll come back another night. I'm going to be going to do an interview with Timothy Alberino next week, so I'll be out of town for a while. It should be a great interview, so hopefully that turns out right. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. It was a fun night. It's it's been a few hours and been reading some fun stuff, talking about some cool stuff. But I'll be back, and we can continue this live stream and continue where we left off another night. So, all right, everybody. I love you all, and good night.